You're listening to the Decidedly podcast with Sanger Smith and Sean Smith. Our mission is to help business owners like you defeat bad decision-making so you can improve your health, wealth, and relationships. We do this by digging deep into the stories and expertise of our guests and distilling their knowledge into actionable wisdom for you to carry into your life and business. If you're new to the show, welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any of our weekly episodes. If you prefer to watch this week's episode, head on over to YouTube for the full video. Now, let's get into this week's episode and defeat bad decision-making in your life and business.
So this company tried to bone me the other day.
Oh, this happens a lot too.
It does, but they were not successful. So I'm in Florida, and I was going to go to a conference. Which what are you laughing at?
Just bone me. It's so aggressive.
Well, when you hear the story,
all right, okay.
So I'm in Florida. I'm going to go to a conference and the conference gets canceled because of the hurricane. Because of the hurricane. All right. So I'm going to stay in Florida. I'm not in an area that's going to get hit.
Yeah.
But I can't go to this conference. I'm going to stay an extra day. All right. So I go onto my Hertz app and I'm like, and there's a button on the app that says extend your rental. I'm like, oh, this will be easy. I'll just hit extend another day.
Okay.
All right. So I'm renting a car that's, I don't know, $60 a day or something. How much would you think it would cost when I hit the button, extend the app, extend the rental one day? How much extra is it going to cost?
$60.
That's what I thought. Want to take a guess at how much it increased my rental?
70?
Yes, again.
100.
Yes, again.
More than that. 150?
$1,000.
No way.
That's what $1,000. So they wanted $1,000 to rent this car, piece of junk. It was a Kia.
Were they otherwise going to rent it to the president?
I don't know. So I said, all right, well, I'm not going to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'd go onto the app and rent a car for the next day.
For one day.
Yeah.
Different car.
It was $60 to rent it the next day. But I do have to drive up to the airport.
We call that price gouging in a hurricane.
Oh my God.
What in the heck? They're like,
it
if
is
this guy wants to extend, he's screwed.
That's exactly right. Is because if I want to extend, what they're banking on is I can't just drive up to the airport, turn in my old car, and pick up the new one, which is exactly what I did.
Yes, because that was worth $940.
It was worth $940. So, yeah, Hertz. So, do you agree? Hertz tried to bone me?
Yeah, I think they did.
They did. Price gouging.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of decisions that a company has to make.
Okay.
Our guest today is a major influence on some major decisions that major corporations have made. Yeah. Guy Kawasaki is the chief evangelist of Canva. And before that, he was the chief evangelist of Apple, particularly during the rise of the Macintosh computer in the 1980s. Since then, he's been brand ambassador for Mercedes-Benz and other major corporations. He's the author of 1 million books.
1 million books, I think.
I think something like that. He's written a lot, a prolific writer, and has a lot of wisdom to share regarding business and marketing. So whether you are the CEO of a major corporation or you're an owner of a small business that wants to improve your marketing, this is where you're going to learn a lot from Guy. So stick around. I know I learned a lot. You will too. My name's Sanger Smith. I'm with my dad, Sean Smith, and this is Decidedly.
I'm so glad you're with us today. I was doing some research. I look at when we have a guest on, I try and pick up a book and kind of look at what they're doing. And holy crap, you've written like 387 books or something like that. So
I'm old. Oh,
you're only 10 years older than me, so don't say that.
Yeah, and he's only written one. So
I've only written one. I'm way behind.
I know you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom to share, especially related to marketing. Before we get to it, I'm interested in your journey and how you got there. So I know you went to law school and you said, hey, this is not for me, which seems to be the reaction a lot of people have for law school. But how do you go? Walk me through the journey of deciding to make that big change in life to pursuing a career in the tech space, which at the time was certainly a lot less glamorous than it is now?
To tell you the truth, I went to law school for about 2 weeks. So it wasn't a big change. A big change is if you're practicing law for 30 years and you decide to throw that all away and start all over. I mean, that's called the Giuliani effect. But no, I didn't do anything like that. So listen, I was young and dumb, and I'm Asian American. So as an Asian American back when I was young and dumb, you wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, or a dentist. And in my undergraduate days, I took this course at Stanford Medical Center where you walked around on medical rounds. And I fainted the first day. So I figured, I'm not cut out to be a doctor. Check that one off the list, yeah. And then I thought, do you want to stick your hand in people's mouths for the rest of your life? And then I read some article that dentists have the highest level of suicides. Okay, so there goes dentistry. And so what was left was law. And my father was a legislator in Hawaii, and he would have loved me to go to law school. But I went to law school and I hated it. And so I hated it. And first time I quit anything in my life, I quit law school. And I really wanted to be in business. So the following year, I went to get an MBA at UCLA. And okay, so the story gets complicated. So the MBA program at UCLA is a 4-day-a-week program. So I had a lot of free time and not a lot of free money. So I started a part-time job. And believe it or not, the part-time job was working for a diamond jewelry manufacturer. So I started counting diamonds. That was my entry. Some people go to Goldman Sachs. Some people go to McKinsey. I counted diamonds. But I had to learn how to sell because after I graduated from my MBA, I went to that same company in sales and marketing. And learning how to sell in the jewelry business is a very tough business. And so that really helped me for the rest of my life. And for sure, it helped me be an evangelist for the Macintosh division of Apple.
What makes jewelry such a tough business to sell in?
Well, it's a tough industry because it's a small industry. So, there's only so many manufacturers and so many retailers. So everybody knows everybody. And, the components of the jewelry industry are very valuable, but they are commodities. I mean, at some level, 18 karat gold is 18 karat gold. And at some level, diamonds are cut, clarity, and there's something else. There's 3 C's, clarity, cut, and caratage. Yeah. So there's the weight, the whiteness, and the clarity. So even though it was very valuable, it's a commodity. So in the jewelry business, there's a temptation if you're buying. You want to stick a piece of jewelry on the scale and say, okay, so there's $50 worth of gold, and take a loop, look at the diamond and say, that diamond is, $200 a carat. There's half a carat. So $50 of gold, $100 of diamonds. I'll let you make 25%. So, I pay you $200, and meanwhile, you're trying to sell it for $500. And that's where the negotiation begins. Scrap value versus what you think you want to sell it for.
How do you move from jewelry to Macintosh? From carrots to apples? Yeah.
The one-word answer to that question is nepotism. My Stanford roommate went to work first for HP, and from HP, he was recruited to the Macintosh division of Apple. And when he became the first software evangelist, he recruited me to work at Apple. The first job didn't work out for me. The second job was to be a second software evangelist. And so the long and the short of that story is that I made a transition from really jewelry business, schlepping diamonds, to schlepping Macintosh because of nepotism, 100% nepotism.
I love that you own that. Before I founded my firm, I worked with my dad. And I remember, I very quickly rose to a leadership position in that company. And I remember an advisor coming up to me, and I'm still great friends with him, even though we don't work together. We were casually talking in my office, and he goes, Sanger, how much do you think you being Sean's son has to do with you being in this position? And I said, oh, well, all of it. Like, duh. I said, and what are you going to do about it? Kind of like, was my attitude. Right. Like, yeah, I'm not going to pretend like everything in my life I've earned completely on my own. That's not true for anybody. Maybe I got more than most people, but I'm not ashamed by it. So I think it's hilarious. Hey, you know what? I got a good connection. You got to own it. Worked out for me.
Just own it. Don't deny it, because then you look at.
Well, it's like all those Hollywood. There's this big like anti-nepotism movement where these actors are getting criticized for, turns out we find out Scarlett Johansson's grandpa was like some famous director in the 30s or whatever, and it's always something like that. And so these interviewers will ask them, and they're like, I don't think nepotism had anything to do with it. You still have to work hard in this industry. Just own it.
I mean, clearly the Trump kids were the most highly qualified people to serve in the federal government during his term. I mean, come on, don't be ridiculous. I think the lesson that, both your case and my case proves is that it's not how you get the job. It's what you do once you have the job, right? Because you may have gotten the job because of your father. I got my job because of nepotism with my friend. But then, on day 2, nobody gives a shit. And you either deliver or you don't.
Yeah. You're either going to be competent or you're not. And surely some people might keep a job that they shouldn't keep. But, at the end of the day, the results become undeniable. And when you've accomplished what you have, you can't really get a lot of flack for it.
Well, I think there was probably a lot to accomplish at that point at Apple. I remember. So when was this? Was this in the late 80s or early 90s, Guy?
Mid 80s, 1983.
So I remember. So I was in college at that time, and I remember there was a guy who had come back to school. So he was an older guy. So he was like, 10 years older than us, and he was on our project team in some class I was taking. And the project was we had to do something on a spreadsheet, right? So that meant going up to the computer room and using the only computer the university probably had, right, at the time. And he goes, no, I've got a computer. I'm like, what do you mean you have a computer? And he had a Mac, and he showed us, and it was this tiny little thing, and it didn't do much, but it had a spreadsheet on it.
Yeah.
And we were just amazed that this guy had his own computer.
Yeah, I was still using an abacus back then. So,
so I would think as an ambassador, at that point, you've got to get people enrolled in writing software for something like that is breaking into an industry. How do you go and become an evangelist for a product that really is sort of new to the market? That had to be a tough sell.
Yeah, it was a tough sell, but that's why the experience in the jewelry business of people throwing your ring on a scale and trying to give you, 25% above scrap value. I learned about rejection a lot. So what happened for me was that I fell in love with Macintosh. And to this day, I believe that the key to being a great evangelist is that you evangelize something great. And because it's very easy to evangelize something great and something that you love, and it's very hard to evangelize crap. So my tip there is don't try to evangelize crap. Either create something good or find something good or get lucky or something, but evangelism doesn't work for anything that isn't superior.
Yeah, that's a great point. The word evangelist comes from I think of it from a Christian background as like a, Christian evangelical, very, proselytizer of their faith. But it was even pre-Christian, the word, and it was a messenger from a king or an emperor after they had won a war, right? Go out there and tell everybody that we've won. And so if you are telling everyone that you won, but you really didn't. Your computer sucks, in other words. Like, it's only a matter of time before they figure that out.
Well, the word evangelism, it has Greek roots. And what it means is you bringing the good news. So as a Christian, the good news is eternal life. And as a Macintosh evangelist, the good news was that it increases your creativity and productivity. And now I'm chief evangelist for Canva, and Canva has democratized design. And so the good news of Canva is that anybody can become a better communicator because we have democratized design. So the bottom line is you got to have good news to be evangelized.
Yeah, you have to have good news. And I love Canva so much. I mean, just this morning, I was sitting here with one of my employees working at this very table, and we were like kind of coming up with, well, what if we could brand this differently, then we could really communicate this aspect of our business that we're under communicating. And so for a second, I think he was like drawing it, and I was like, no, what are we doing? Like, go to Canva, dude, stop this. Like, we can create something pretty and something beautiful so easily with Canva. It helps when it's good news.
I mean, way back when in, BC, before Canva, you would have had to have mastered Illustrator and Photoshop. So that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's a huge leg up. I mean, the way that I can like create a presentation that looks like a graphic designer put it together in minutes. I mean, you can create a whole slide deck. But what I really picked up on there with your commentary about Apple and your commentary about Canva is you said more or less like you're not evangelizing the product, you're evangelizing the benefit or it democratizes design. That's the good news about it. The good news isn't the software is really cool. The good news is like how it actually impacts the lives of others. And I think a lot of particularly small business owners like miss that part of it. Like I have this good service, I have this good product. It's really good. Why is no one listening to me that it's really good? And it's because we don't get people to understand what the good news is.
I mean, basically 100% of people say whatever their product or service is good, right? I mean, it's like, this is what I call the opposite test. And the opposite test for you marketers out there goes like this. So, you go out and you look how you describe your product or service. It's powerful, it's easy to use, it's well documented, it's beautiful, blah, 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 blah. Then you ask yourself, okay, so is my competition describing their product in an opposite way? Which means that you're saying your product is bug-free, powerful, fast, easy to use. Is your competition saying, well, our product is buggy and it's slow and it's hard to use and it gives really poor results? So if your competition is saying the opposite of you, then you are saying something different. But obviously, I'm being facetious, and 99 times out of 100, your competition is saying the exact same thing as you.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a good test.
that is true. I think when you look at that, there has to start from not only a good product or good service, but there has to be this emotional connection to it. I remember one of my managers early on, I was in the financial services business, and he says, you better be investing in the same stuff you're talking. And so he said, you've got to experience it. You've got to believe in it. When somebody asks you, are you buying these investments? You need to be truthfully saying, yes, I do, because that's how you have to believe in it. And if you can't do that, don't do it. But I think it's interesting what you're bringing up is finding that aspect of the product that is going to resonate with the people who you're trying to evangelize to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when it was with Apple, it was, Think Different, which I think it was a brilliant campaign, the 1984 commercial. And with Canva, it's the same thing. But how do you go about that process of discovering what is it that we think this does that is going to resonate so as to not stand the same as everybody else?
Well, first, a little fact checking for you. So the 1984 commercial featured a woman running down an auditorium and throwing the axe at the image of IBM, mind control, 1984, dystopia. The ad Think Different came out in 1997. The Think Different campaign was about, Gandhi and Einstein and Branson and Martha Graham and, Martin Luther King, Picasso. They are different thinkers. And so the pitch was, if you think different, you would use a Macintosh. And arguably that ad campaign saved Apple. So, the question is that you pose. And for me, it was easy because basically you just did whatever Steve told you to do. You didn't have to think too much. I think that is why Steve Jobs was so remarkable. I mean, he either, depending on how you want to look at him, he either was able to predict what people needed even before they could articulate it. Or the other way of looking at Steve is that he made whatever the hell he wanted to make, and then he was able to convince people to like what he liked. Either way, you could explain Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I don't know how much truth there is to this rumor, but there's this thing that goes around the internet every now and then where Steve Jobs got an email from a iPhone user, just a regular person, not a executive or anything. And they're like, Steve, every time I hold up my iPhone to my head while I'm listening to music, it skips or something. Yeah, he was pointing out a bug with the product, and he goes, "Don't hold it like that."
Hey Doc, my elbow hurts when I do that. Well, don't do that. Yeah.
And I love that. He was like, you know what? I think there's a lot of humor in that. And then there's a lot of like wisdom, even in this micro level of, you cannot make everyone happy.
that would be like saying to your doctor, every time I bend this way, my back hurts. And your doctor says, don't bend that way.
There you go. Solved it. Well, when you're using the opposite test, how do you find something that resonates other than, it seems like it should be used as a test, not as a step one, right? In other words, if I want to compete against Coca-Cola, I'm not going to say that my soda is warm and flat and tastes like, trash.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a good test for what I do find. So how do you find something that is opposite, that's not, that still does resonate?
As I said, one path was just do what Steve said. But now Steve is dead, and even if he is alive, he's probably not helping you sell soda. So I think it's a combination of the law of big numbers. You got to try a lot of different things. And at some point, hopefully something resonates. So, and then the way I think it really works is you try a lot of things. You think you have brilliant insights. You try that, it fails. You try another thing, it fails. And then knock on wood, at some point, one of them works. And then what you do then, Silicon Valley style, is you retrospectively reinvent history and you say, of course that's successful. That's what I picked. And you never talk about the 99 times you picked the wrong thing. And like the extreme example of this is in venture capital, right? So you go to a successful venture capitalist and you say, well, how did you know you should invest in Google? And the venture capitalist will say, well, I'm a very good judge of world-class teams. I can understand world-class markets, and I can understand world-class business models. So of course I picked Google. And then you say to them, well, then why did you invest in Theranos? Why did you lose $200 million in Theranos? And the guy will say, I told my dumbass partners not to do that deal. It wasn't me.
So tell me a story about something you tried that didn't fly then.
Well, how long does your podcast last for each episode?
We got as much time as you have stories.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to invoke PTSD in your guests. What kind of
sorry about
podcast
that.
also? Oh my God. I'm 70 years old, and I have come to believe that the opposite of success, speaking of opposite tests, many people believe that the opposite of success is failure. I have come to believe that a better attitude is that the opposite of success is learning. So as long as you're learning from your quote failure, it's not a total failure. At least you should fail in different ways in the future.
Yeah, I remember my father told me years ago, I tried something, it didn't work. He goes, well, you got experience there. And I go, yeah, and I wasn't feeling too good about it. And he goes, you know what experience is? Experience is when you get something, it's when you don't get what you want. You get something you didn't want, get this experience. And so I sort of took that to heart, is that every time there was something where it was, could be perceived as a failure. So I got an experience. I got something I didn't want. Didn't get what I did want.
In my jiu-jitsu gym, everybody on the team who competes, you either win or you learn. I won that tournament. Sweet. I won. I lost first round. I learned. There are things that I can identify in jiu-jitsu that prevent people from learning. Some people actually just lose. They did not learn anything. One is they blame the other guy. Like the other guy somehow cheated his way to victory. It was, well, he had that style, that stupid style that just doesn't match well with my style. Or is the ref, the ref should have given me 2 points, but he didn't. And then that got in my head and I ended up losing by 10. Wait, so he didn't give you 2, but you still lost by 10. So you only really would have lost by 8.
5
right?
times.
Wait a second. It's that.
I don't think that Caitlin Clark will ever say, the person guarding me wasn't my style of defense, and that's why I couldn't score against her.
Well, there's a big gap in mentality between her and, some like accountant who does jiu-jitsu on the weekend. But what are the things in business that prevent you from learning when you have the opportunity to do so?
Well, one is definitely denial and arrogance, right? I mean, that's the obvious one, but I think a more subtle and more dangerous one actually happens to be success. And so when you're successful, it becomes a habit and you start thinking, well, okay, I'll give you a negative example. So suppose you're Kodak and it's the 1970s and you're selling as much film and paper and chemicals as you can possibly make, right? You're just printing money because people's buying your film and paper and chemicals. And so you're very successful. Now, down in the bowels of Kodak, there's an engineer. And in 1975, he invents a digital camera. Now, this digital camera was like 10 pounds and, 100 pixels. I mean, it wasn't today's digital camera, but still, it was a digital camera. Now, if you're Kodak, depending on your attitude, you can do one of two things. One, you can say, well, we're Kodak. We're the chemical company business. We make chemicals. We put it on paper and film. We've been doing that for 50 years. We've been making millions and millions of dollars. We're good at it. We make money at it. That's what we do. That's one attitude. The other attitude is to think, well, we're not a chemical business. The business we're fundamentally in is we help people preserve memories. And if you think about it, a digital camera where you immediately know that you captured the memory is a lot better than a piece of film that you go to Italy, you take a picture, you fly back to the United States, you recover from your flight. The next few days, you go to your drugstore, you give them the film. A week later, you get the film back and you see if you preserve your memories or you had the lens cap on the camera. That's a little late to figure out if you got your memory. So if Kodak had believed that they were in the preservation of memories business, What they should have done is they should have said, let's take this cash cow called chemicals and let's milk that puppy till she is dry. And then we'll use that money to build a digital camera business, because we're in the business of preserving memories. And that is a much better way to preserve memories. And we will be dominant for a long, long time.
What do you think prevents people from understanding the true essence of the business that they're in? Because like the example you shared with Kodak, they're in the business of preserving memories. That seems really obvious looking back on it. And as soon as you said it, it's like, oh, of course they are. I'm not sure that if you had asked me that's what I would have said. Yeah, I might have come up with some, but that's why. So how do you get, not to say you're wrong, I'm just saying like it's actually difficult to discover what business you're in sometimes.
Well, let me be honest. That's why it's easier to be an author than a CEO.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's true. And I think sometimes the business that you're in can change over time. If you look at the investment management business, when I started 35 years ago, it was, let me help you. I had all the information and the client had no information, and they would come to me and I would recommend a investment and we'd buy it. Well, that's not the game anymore, because a client has just as much information as I do in their pocket now. So the game is different. It's about not just information, but wisdom. And so, it's gone to, helping people make better decisions and so forth. When you look at investment opportunities or startup businesses, if you're in venture capital, what have you, how do you dig into the company and determine, what do I think they're really doing here? Is that a viable business? You know what I mean? In other words, are they making memories or are they just selling chemicals?
Do you want the answer that venture capitalists will give you, or do you want the real truth? I give you a choice right now.
Well, yeah, I want the real truth, right?
I think the real truth is that it's about 90% luck. I really, really do, because if let me pitch you some companies. And you tell me, if you were a venture capitalist back when they were starting, you would have squeezed the trigger and invested. Okay. So,
all right.
We have a service where you can have 150 character text message. You can text message this to anybody on the internet. You can tell people that the line at Starbucks is long. You can add a picture to that. And all these people are going to join this service so they can tell people that the line at Starbucks is long, or Southwest Airlines is late, or the sun has set over Albuquerque. So that's our business.
Sounds horrible.
No, I never would have invested in that.
Well, that was Twitter.
Right. I never would have invested
another
in
business. We're two guys in a garage, and we want to help people upload videos. So we need unlimited bandwidth, unlimited server space, and we're going to let people upload video that they stole. And our turning point, what's going to make us successful is that these people are going to drop Mentos into Diet Cokes. And when you drop a Mento into a Diet Coke, it foams. And these are going to be such interesting videos that now everybody's going to start using our service. How would you like to invest in my company? It's called YouTube.
Right.
And when you hear it that way, you think like, why would anybody have invested in Twitter or YouTube? Google was about the 5th or 6th search engine. Even Apple, me and my buddy were two guys in a garage. We don't have a college education, and we think we can make this little thing that will put up a little prompt on a screen, and then if somebody invents a language, maybe we can make that prompt do something interesting. Would you like to invest in Apple? There's no dealers. There's no such thing as a personal computer. There's only mainframe computers in universities and large companies. How about investing in two guys in a garage who just barely escape criminal prosecution for cracking the AT&T telephone network? How would you like to invest in the most valuable? Our company is going to be the most valuable company in the world by 2023. Well, sign right here. Give me your check right now. Give me the check. And so, you hear those examples now. A venture capitalist will tell you, as I kind of alluded to before, that I'm a great judge of leadership. I'm a great judge of entrepreneurship. I'm a great judge of technology. I'm a great judge of markets and their potential and business models. So of course, I invested in Apple and Google and Cisco and Yahoo and Pinterest and Facebook and Google. But then my dumbass partners invested in Theranos and Webvan. Don't blame me. So I'm trying to tell you that a lot of it is luck. I really believe that.
Is it helpful to understand that a lot of it is luck? I mean, once you know, hey, some of this is just luck, does that change how you approach these deals as opposed to someone who hasn't learned that lesson?
That is a very astute question, because, people listening to this, they're saying, oh, Guy's strategy is get lucky. That's not exactly an actionable strategy. Like if you're a financial planner and your potential client says to you, so what's your investment thesis? And you say, oh, our investment thesis is get lucky. The person's probably going to go to Fidelity, right? I mean, but on the other hand, 3 years ago, why didn't you guys invest in NVIDIA? Because NVIDIA was making chips for games, and games was not exactly popular back then. But NVIDIA jumped the shark and went to artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence jumped the shark, and the rest is history. Well, how come we didn't know that? I'm so smart. I'm in the tech business. How come I didn't invest in NVIDIA? Because who the hell knew, right? And this is probably like upsetting all your audience, but you cannot underestimate the role of luck. So I think you take your best shot. You try to increase your luckiness, but you gotta fundamentally believe that it's luck. Now, I'll give you a way that I think you can make the luck happen more, which is my observation that the most successful tech companies, not necessarily everything else, but a successful tech company starts with founders who built a product that they themselves wanted to use, right? So Woz and Jobs built an Apple One. Mark Zuckerberg built a social media platform. Larry and Sergey built a search engine that they wanted to use. So I started seeing these patterns that, like, two guys in a garage, two gals in a garage, they make the product they want to use, and then luckily they're not the only two nutcases in the world that want to use them. I think that's the richest vein, but you know what? It's a hard investment thesis to tell people we're going to invest in companies where the founders made something for an unproven market. They just wanted to use it. Oh, that's going to get you far.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's probably an aspect of looking at what that benefit is and using that opposite test that you were talking about. Is it standing out in the marketplace? Is it providing something that is unique? And Airbnb, nobody was, really renting out air mattresses in people's houses before that. Now, that could have gone down in flames, but it certainly was unique. And so I think that's probably one of those aspects to the luck. You were talking about AI just a minute ago, and I think we could all agree that AI is probably
before we jump to AI.
Sure. All right, go ahead.
You brought up a great example, Airbnb. Now, let me be honest. When I first heard of Airbnb, I said, who the hell would want strangers on the internet to use my extra bedroom or couch? I'm going to have axe murderers, pedophiles, nutcases, drug dealers, criminals rent my bedroom for one night. I have no idea who they are. Now, if you're the renter, you say, Airbnb, have you lost your mind? When I rent that room, how do I know that's not a sex criminal? How do I know that's not a drug dealer? How do I know that's not a, sadomasochist? I mean, you're telling me I'm going to fly to San Francisco. I'm going to drive to this house. I'm going to stay in that room on Airbnb. Are you crazy? And obviously people are willing to do it right now. Who would have predicted that? I would not have predicted that.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. Talking about products that that the owners themselves or the founders themselves want to use. One of the key red flags for me is when somebody describes a startup as the Uber of insert industry.
Oh, right.
That's definitely gonna fail because you are just chasing money. This isn't some organic idea in the vein of Steve Jobs.
It matters. It's a subtle point. Now, if you said to somebody that we are the Uber of airplanes, that kind of makes sense, right? So you're saying that people who have private jets, they're often unused because, if you're the corporate jet and your corporate owner is not flying around anywhere, so the corporate jet is just sitting there 80% of the time. So you're the Uber of corporate jets. So now anybody can go to this site and say, I need to fly from San Francisco to Los Angeles on Wednesday. And I go to uberjet.com and, there it is. I can rent that. Kind of makes sense, right? I mean, I'm the Airbnb of boats because most people own boats. They live in another city. The boat is just sitting there 9 months a year. So we can rent a boat. We're the Airbnb of boats. So those kind of metaphors can work, but I appreciate your insight that when people do that, but I think the tradition goes back to Hollywood that when you pitch an idea, it's very useful to have metaphors. So we're like Dirty Harry meets the Queen's Gambit. So this is like a really violent chess player that's really good, but she packs a .44 Magnum. It's Dirty Harry means the Queen's Gambit. That's my new movie. Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah. It is sometimes maybe I'm being a little too harsh because it's people's attempt to make sense of something that's hard to understand. But it's a sign that the reason this company exists might not be because somebody is passionately trying to discover a way to bring forth a reality that they want to participate in. It might simply be because somebody thinks, hey, this is a really cool idea that can make a lot of money. If the founder of the boat Uber or whatever was really desperately wanting to be able to rent boats everywhere he traveled, then maybe I'd hear him out.
Yeah. Or if the founder of Boat Uber actually owned the boat and understood, I own this boat and it's docked in Santa Monica, California, but I live in New York City and I only go to Santa Monica for the summer months. So 9 months a year, my boat is sitting in the marina in Marina Del Rey and nobody's using it. So why don't I rent it out? I mean, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I think for anybody listening, I'm going to trademark Boat Uber.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not investing.
I bought the domain already.
So we were talking about AI earlier.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that's just a fad. That's probably not going to do it.
Yeah, probably not.
But you did something really interesting, Guy. So Guy set up it's Kawasaki GPT. .com. And you can talk to Guy and ask him questions.
And it just done that.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll interview you again tomorrow as ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I'm not really here. This is virtual Guy. Guy's surfing right now.
So all of the, now that doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's written 397 books and has a podcast with a bunch of guests on it that they can draw content from. So it's not scalable for everybody. What do you hope to do with that? How did you get interested in doing that? And then what do you hope to do with it?
I love AI. I think AI is a bigger deal than the industrial revolution and the computer revolution, social media, computing in general. And so I did Kawasaki GPT primarily for fun and for just experimentation. So let me tell you how it works. So there's a company that I use, and it allows me to upload all the books and blog posts and videos and whatever. I can curate the data that goes into Kawasaki GPT. I also put in the transcripts of all my Remarkable People podcasts. So now when you go to Kawasaki GPT and you ask, well, what does it take to introduce a product? You're going to get my thoughts as well as Angela Duckworth and Bob Cialdini and David Acker and Carol Dweck and, a lot of people. It's not just me. And so what I'm trying to do is give people a place where they can ask questions of experts like that. But I'll tell you something, I am not at all convinced that Kawasaki GPT is viable. Because I think what will happen, if you're listening right now, go to Kawasaki GPT and pretend you're asking me a question. And I promise you'll get an answer from Kawasaki GPT that's better than what Kawasaki himself can say. But the problem in my mind is that, that's really, interesting and fun. And it's a great gimmick. But 6 months from now, if you're starting your company and you're saying, what should be in a pitch? You're probably going to go to Chat GPT or you're going to go to Google and you're going to ask, what should be in a slide deck for a pitch for venture capital? And at Google's going to throw Gemini at you, and Chat GPT is going to throw, all the things that it scanned, and it's going to give you an answer. And I just have a hard time believing that people are going to remember that, there's this thing called Kawasaki GPT. I can go ask Guy the question. I think they're going to go to sort of standard, big deal, just extremely popular search engines and LLMs. They're not going to remember that Kawasaki GPT exists. So that's well, I thought it was
super interesting. I actually went on it and just posed a few questions. I thought it was really, I wasn't
there's certainly,
sure how you were going to monetize it.
There's certainly a niche market for, hey, if I want to prepare for an interview with Guy, he's got this GPT. Yeah. Or someone who's a big fan. Hey, I want to, I want to learn
that's not
more.
Even a niche. That's
it's like your mom. That's the only person that's going to do that.
Yeah.
100 people in the world might use it.
Well, sure. I think there are, for celebrities, there are the original concept of OnlyFans, for example, before it just turned into a completely degenerate porn site, was you're getting access.
How would you know that?
Hey, man.
Have you seen Guy's site? Guy's OnlyFans?
Before it turned into that, the concept was, hey, if I really like Brad Pitt movies, I can get access to these things about Brad Pitt that aren't going to show up in the movie. Hey, it's videos of him getting ready for the set. It's him talking about this new project he's working on, whatever. And I think there's some appeal to that for people.
Are there those people who do that? I mean, is that,
yeah,
I haven't been on this.
No, there are. That's why a year or two ago, the founder or the CEO, I don't know if he's the founder, but the CEO of OnlyFans came out and he said, all right, no more porn.
I remember when he
said that.
Well,
he said that because he didn't start it to be a porn company. And he was unpleasantly surprised that that's what it turned into.
I think that position lasted a day and a half.
Yeah, it wasn't. They quickly reversed their ruling there. But the reason that he came out was like, that's not what we tried to do. And there are people who, for example, Demetrius Johnson, his former UFC flyweight champion, he's currently fights in Asia in ONE FC. He has an OnlyFans. And I am not a subscriber, but I know that he does because he competes in jiu-jitsu tournaments in the same organization that I compete in. And he wears an OnlyFans logo like on his gi.
Yeah.
He has an OnlyFans, and it's not him doing nasty, weird stuff. It's him just like behind the scenes training videos. Okay. So now you got to be a pretty big Demetrius Johnson fan to want to do that. But at the same time, he's only asking for maybe $10 a month.
How many people do you think sign up for that Demetrius Johnson OnlyFans ultimately to be disappointed that it's just training videos?
I don't know. I don't know. He's a short guy, so not very many probably. But I think there's that type of, I can see the individual GPT going in that route maybe, but maybe there's something, when I use Chat GPT, for example, if I'm asking for wisdom, I'm going to get some bad wisdom.
Yes,
like I'm getting the collection of the internet's opinion. Whereas if I ask Kawasaki GPT, I know I'm getting a trusted expert's opinion. Well, I'm at least getting something better than, the Yahoos on Twitter that have never run a company.
Well, I think there's a difference between a closed AI and an open AI. I think so your Kawasaki GPT
but
is a closed
where
AI.
I'm going with that is you could get not maybe just Kawasaki GPT, but like there's other ones that compile you and other people like CEO
Gary
GPT.
Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin.
Yes.
Now, but let me float an idea with you. So I am dubious that Demetrius Johnson or Guy Kawasaki can have a functional, viable, individual closed GPT. But let's suppose that you have an investment site, okay? And so you have an investment site and you create a GPT just for your investment site. So you go to your investment site and you ask, okay, so you guys, you populate that with everything you have done about investment and finance and all that. So everything is in there, right? And then whenever somebody asks a question that you don't have in there, you can add the answers. So over time, there truly can be everything. So now people who are your customers, they come there and they ask, well, how do I get a blank 1099? What is the due date for the estimated tax for federal? How do I get my federal PIN number? What is the current rate of the 30-day CD? What is the current price of, whatever. So they can ask any question in your little garden. So you're not trying to get like millions of people to use it as a content website. It's only your customers who could probably point and click and search and, do all kinds of stuff, send email to support at your website. But instead, there's a dedicated sort of, I call it a digital entity, kind of a chat bot that they can ask any question about your website and business and only about that. I think that would be extremely useful and every small business should have that.
Yeah, I can totally see that happening. There is a software that kind of does the opposite of that in the sense that it would have allowed us, it just didn't quite work the way they pitched it, but I think they'll get there, allow us to upload, for example, client meeting notes. And eventually the software, after enough notes, it knows the client. So if we can ask the system a question, hey, what, I want to do something nice for a guy this year. What would be like a really impressive like client service moment that we could do that would make him really happy? Oh, well, it's Guy's 70th birthday and he really likes surfing and boom, boom, boom. Maybe you could get him. He told you a couple years ago that his surfboard's kind of worn out. I don't know, but it knows that. and it can provide wisdom and customized answers. Do that. Obviously, do other things too, like, hey, can you help me calculate the taxes on the sale of Guy's business in this coming year? Boom. So I can see both ends of those being very, very, very useful.
But both use cases that we just described is much more believable than people going to come to Kawasaki GPT in large quantities, and that's a viable thing for you, Guy. That I do not see.
Yeah, I think that's more of like maybe a gimmicky type thing that people will have fun with for the A-list celebrities if they chose to do that. Are there any other uses for AI that people are predicting that you think are not going to happen?
Not going to happen.
Well, I can tell you what, I think a lot of the people that are concerned about it taking away people's jobs.
Oh yeah, they need to
overstated.
Get over it. Those guys are still delivering ice cubes.
Yeah.
AI is going to take my milkman job.
It'll shift. I mean, it'll shift how you do your job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I got to tell you, so like, let's take this case. So let's say that you are making a business card for your business, and your business is that you are a dog walker. Okay. So, people drop their dogs off and you dog sit them and dog walk them for $50 an hour or whatever. So you need a business card and you want a logo, and you live in Santa Cruz and you're a surfer. So you call your company something about, dogs and waves or something like that. So now you go to Canva and you say, make me some pictures of dogs on surfboards. And 30 seconds later, you'll have 5 pictures. You didn't have to hire a photographer. You didn't have to get the surfboard. You didn't have to get the dog. You didn't have to get anything, right? And AI generates 5 photos. You pick one and bada bing, bada bang, you're in business. So that is definitely a threat to those photographers. And, I don't doubt that. But I would say that AI is going to happen whether it's going to take jobs away or not. So, that horse is out of the barn. So the fear should be not that AI is going to take my job, but someone who knows how to use AI better than me is going to take my job. That's what's going to happen.
I think there's also some resistance. What was that dock worker strike where they were negotiating?
Longshoremen?
The longshoremen, yeah. And they were actually, one of the things they wanted, in addition to increase in pay, was a moratorium on new innovation. Like they said, you can't automate any stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's going to be people that try and fight it.
The union, and yeah, they'll find a way to slow progress down real quick. I mean, the spirit of, hey, we want better pay, we want better working conditions, but then there's always that it's so driven by fear, and it is so short-sighted. I mean, maybe in some cases, entire jobs do go away, but those people can move on to more productive, more useful jobs in the future, and often with better pay as well. I mean, we're going to have no more truck drivers by the time that I'm dead. And that's a good thing.
Or live people reading the news.
Yeah.
I saw that negotiating point too, and I said, wow, I want to see the company that's going to sign on to that. This is no more innovation. I mean, let's face it, that at some point the boat is going to pull into the dock and this AI trained crane is going to go like just unload everything without human operation, right? I mean, how can they not think that's going to happen?
In some ways, we should be very happy for the pressure that these certain labor unions put on the corporations, because it accelerates the innovation process. They go, oh, these people are going to make it difficult for us. We're going to go ahead and just figure out how to move past this obstacle. I mean, like my wife and I went to Spain and on our honeymoon. On our way home, we stopped in London for a day, and there was one of those Amazon, Amazon grocery stores in London. And if you've ever seen one, have you seen one of these? So there's no employees in it.
Huh.
There's about 1 million cameras.
Yeah.
When you go in, you can either you can use Apple Pay, and I think there's maybe even a way where you can scan your hand. So it knows that you've entered, and then now it knows, hey, someone just entered and it's that guy. We got his face. And everywhere you go in the store, it watches as you put stuff into your basket, and it knows the price of that item. So it's calculating your bill as you're shopping, and then you just leave.
Oh, yeah. So I tried to one of these in Brussels earlier this year. And because I had heard about them, but I was wondering, well, what keeps somebody from just going through, grabbing the bread, the eggs, and just walking out? Is they
can't
do
get
that
in without
on the front
Apple
end,
Pay.
right?
Yeah,
you've got to sign off on a lot of stuff.
You're
at the
doing
front end.
Apple Pay before you get in, and
Right.
I'm assuming you could tap your card before you go in as well. But I did it before at an airport. I can't remember which airport. And it was a small one. It was just little, like potato chips and Snickers bars and stuff. But that's going to be,
Well, and we have the one of those robot McDonald's here in town where there's
that one's bullshit. That one is so annoying because there was this big article that it said first fully automated McDonald's. And I'm thinking, when you hear that guy, you're thinking there's no employees at this McDonald's. That's interesting, right? There's a robot making my burger. So I get up, I get in my car, I drive 15 minutes down the road to West Fort Worth to go to this fully automated McDonald's. No, the only thing that's fully automated is the order taking process, which, by the way,
there's still people just flipping burgers?
There's still people flipping your burgers. That's how all of the McDonald's are in Europe.
What bullshit?
Yes, you go to the screen, you type in every single McDonald's in Europe, at least that I've been to a lot of McDonald's in Europe, is fully automated ordering.
You know this is orthogonal to the story you just told, but I heard a very good unintended consequence of McDonald's making all the touch screens so people order. They figured out that the average order size has increased because as you're touching and you're saying cheeseburger, French fry, and Coke, and then you see apple turnover, that the human would not have pushed the apple turnover on you, but you're just pointing and clicking apple turnover. Yeah, why not? And you order an apple turnover. So the average price, the average total price of what people order has increased because of automation.
I believe that 100%. That was my experience. Especially, I'm like, fun, try. Oh yeah, click. It's like, I'm getting dopamine from adding it to the cart.
I had that experience went to a Shake Shack the other day. And so you walk in and they don't let you just walk up to the counter and tell them what you want. You've got to go to this little
stupid little thing.
screen.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to get
So
a
it's
burger.
fully automated.
It's fully automated. Yeah. And so I go to the screen. And I did exactly what you're saying, guy. It's like, here's all this stuff you could add to your burger. I'm like, well, hell yeah, I'll have avocado. Hell yeah, I'll have bacon.
Well, because it's impossible for you to train a minimum wage worker. Listen, every time they order a shake, you need to ask them
if they want avocado.
And they just won't ask. So you go, okay.
No, absolutely. So where do you see Canva going that maybe people aren't recognizing? Like, what's that going to develop into?
Well, I kind of described this case of you're making a business card for your dog walking business and you need a logo with a dog on a surfboard. And before you had to upload your picture of your dog on your surfboard, but now generational AI, it's just like bada bing, bada bang. You have 5 different dogs on 5 different surfboards. And so Canva has integrated all that kind of technology. It's really quite cool. And they can help you just spit out presentations and stuff. Now, this is not to say that a great presentation won't be edited by you, but it certainly is a great start. And, let me be honest, with Kawasaki GPT, let me tell you something. I get asked to write forewords and blurbs for books and contribute articles every day. And now what I do is I put the PDF of the book into Kawasaki GPT and I say, give me a 2 to 3 sentence blurb as if Guy Kawasaki were writing the blurb. Be sure to highlight blah, blah, blah. And then 2 seconds later, it gives me this blurb. And I send it to the author, and the author says, oh, Guy, that is just so great. We love it. And then a journal says, Guy, give me an article, 500 words about how to be a great evangelist. So, I go to Kawasaki GPT and I say, give me a 500-word essay about how to be a great evangelist. Be sure to include 3 tactics. Make the tactics all bullet points, and the bullet points should all start with an active verb. And 2 seconds later, I have the first draft. Is that cheating or is that smart?
Guess who's writing the foreword to my next book?
Yeah.
Just send me the PDF. In fact, you don't even need to ask me. Just put it in Kawasaki GPT.
Yeah, I'll just do it myself. Yeah, I'll let you know when it comes out.
That's hilarious.
Okay, now I can sell forewords. Oh, that's the business model.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. What do you think is your greatest decision-making tip for business owners?
I think my tip would be about keeping the guardrails on, and let me translate that. So I think what every business should ask itself is, are we asking people to do something we would not want to do? And if you come to the conclusion that, yes, we are, you should fix that. And so, are we asking people to set up a new account by giving their Visa card number? Are we asking people to set up a new account and figuring out CAPTCHA, right? So, prove that you're a human. So we're going to give you 16 photos. Find the photos that don't have a bus in them. I have never, ever been able to do a CAPTCHA like that the first time right? Every time there's a bus someplace that I don't see. And so it's stuff like that. And I think that, if every business would just ask, are we making people do stuff that we wouldn't do? So let's eliminate all that friction. I think that would be very good.
Right.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate you for being here. Where can people connect with you and the work you're doing in Kawasaki GPT?
Well, you can eliminate buying anything from me. No book, no podcast, nothing. You don't have to do nothing. Just go to Kawasaki GPT. It's all free, and just keep taking it in. But if you have morals and you want to help me out, you can buy my book, Think Remarkable. You can listen to my podcast called Remarkable People. And finally, I have a Substack newsletter, which is also free. So it's, you know what? I'm 70 years old. I'm at this stage of life that I have enough money to live the rest of my life. And I just want to be remembered for empowering people, for making the world a better place.
Well, you're doing that. Thank you, Guy.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
My takeaway from talking with Guy is that there is obviously a real passion around pushing the edge on innovation and looking at trying new things, the fact that when most people are retired, he's starting new ventures and he's becoming an ambassador to new technologies. And so I think that is really important for business owners, is to look at, how do you engage with innovation? How do you engage with the new concepts and technology that's coming out there?
My biggest takeaway is probably the opposite test. I
was going to say that, but I knew you. I wanted to leave you.
Yeah,
something.
Thanks.
I didn't want to take it from you.
If you're not saying the opposite of your competitors, then it's not really that different. And there's a lot of things that a lot of companies are saying that they mean and they believe that's not only not the opposite,
it's the same,
but it's the same as everybody.
You just made a great decision to listen to this episode of Decidedly. Make another great decision by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review wherever you're listening. We appreciate the support. It helps business owners like you find our community and defeat bad decision-making in their own lives. For more decision-making insights, check us out at decidedlypodcast.com, on Instagram at decidedlypodcast, or grab a copy of Sanger and Sean's books from the links in the show notes. Finally, we'd like to thank Shelby Peterson of Transcend Media for editing and post-production of the show. Thanks for listening. I'm Morgan, your producer, and this is Decidedly.